Welcome back, Careblazer. In today's video, I want to talk about the urge or the desire for you to get other people to understand what you're going through. In last week's video, I talked about other people's opinions and kind of how to handle other people's unhelpful opinions about your caregiving situation. And I think this video is also very closely related to it, kind of wanting other people to understand what you're going through. And both of these things, people not understanding and people's opinions, can lead to a lot of frustration and anger and stress on your part. So I kind of want to talk about how to cope with these things. I sometimes get questions from Careblazers about how they can get their family members to understand what they're going through. And I think it's coming from a place of wanting the family members to offer more help or to offer support or even just sympathy. And I totally get it. It's hard to go about this caregiving journey alone, and it's helpful when family knows what's going on. So hopefully they might be able to offer some support or help, or at least not make anything worse for you. Many times, having somebody in the family with dementia creates a lot of family tension. It can seem like family members start to argue with one another all the time, disagree with one another, kind of this power struggle. And this is a time when I wish family members would pull together and support one another and come together. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And there's so much about dementia that tends to kind of put a wedge between family members. Now, usually there is one main caregiver for the person with dementia in most families, and that's probably you, the one watching the videos, taking time out of their day to watch these videos. You're probably the main caregiver. So you have all these other family members who are not as involved, but who might have a lot to say that's not helpful to you. That can be pretty frustrating, and you might just be wondering, what can I do to get them to understand? They don't understand me, they're questioning me, they don't believe me, they're totally not helpful at all. How can I get my family members to understand? And because, unfortunately, we can't just change people to act the way that we want them to act or do things we want them to do, we have to focus on you, right? You're the one watching this video, you're the Careblazer. We have to focus on what you can do to try to increase the chances that family members will start to understand. Now, before I get into the specifics, if your goal watching this video is to convince your family, then I think you're starting off on the wrong foot. You might be disappointed. I want you to go into this video and listen to some of these tips from the point of view that I'm going to try to change my approach a little bit and see if it helps with my family. See if it changes anything, right? So instead of this goal of I have to convince my family to change, it's this goal of I'm going to do whatever I can to see if I can make a positive change in my family dynamics. So here's what I want you to try doing. I want you to try communicating with balance. I have talked to a lot of Careblazers who, when they communicate with family members, it's filled with all the challenges, all the struggles, all the debacles and arguments and frustrations. And while that's completely true, and that is the life of a Careblazer many times, faced with all of these difficult challenges, for somebody who's not in the thick of things, seeing it, witnessing it, it's really hard for them to kind of hear only that. So while it's okay to share your frustrations and some of the mishaps and some of the difficulties, I also want to make sure you're balancing that with communication of some of the good things as well. Because sometimes from the other perspective, from people who don't know what's going on, they're like, wow, she's making this seem to be like this really big, awful thing. And I just talked to mom on the phone yesterday and she seemed completely fine. Then they start to question and doubt. So it's just something to get, it's a good habit to get into in terms of sharing some of the small wins along the way too. So if you and your loved one sat down and watched an old Andy Griffith rerun and your dad laughed and smiled throughout the show, that's probably a perfect time to snap a picture, send it to the family text and say, check out Dad laughing at the Andy Griffith show. He loved it, right? Just, you can still share your struggles. Make sure you share some of the good things as well. This is really helpful, even though it might feel forced or odd in the beginning. It's really helpful because a lot of times Careblazers have gotten in the habit of sharing all the difficulties that it's gotten to the point where family members are like dreading to see the name pop up on email or text message or caller ID because they're thinking, what now, right? So we want to just kind of start this really easy way of, having your family members see some good news communicated along with some of the more difficult times as well. Also, I want you to think about this. Think back to when you were first caregiving for your loved one with dementia, before maybe you even realized something was going on with your loved one. This is like a really bizarre disease. It's confusing. It is not always obvious what's going on, and I'm sure now you still have a lot of questions or are wondering what is going on. And could you imagine how somebody might be thinking who's removed from the situation? Right? This is challenging for you guys. That's why you watch videos and you have questions and you're trying to figure out what's going on as the main caregiver. For people outside, they're even more confused and clueless about what's going on. So a lot of times, it's not that your family member totally doesn't want to believe you or thinks that you're totally lying all the time. It's just that it's really hard for a family member to probably understand what's going on in one of the most complicated diseases there are. So take a look at how you're interacting with your family members. Try to do it with a bit more balance. Try to do it from an open heart. I hope it can start to mend some of the family tension. And also, I do believe this can be helpful, but it can take some time. So don't go into it with expecting a big change right away, or don't go into it thinking the minute they say something hurtful or rude that I'm going to throw this out the window and it's not going to work. Remember, we can't change other people. We can change our behaviors. And oftentimes by changing our behaviors, things start to change around us like a ripple effect. It takes time. I would love to know your thoughts on this. I would especially love to know if you've tried this approach, or if you are going to try this approach, and if you've noticed any changes, you can leave them in the comments below. I'll be back next week with another video. In the meantime, Careblazer, keep up the good work. Bye.